Hey guys, my name's Nick Kondo, and welcome to the August AnimChallenge critique for the entry that won Most Creative. And the winner is Chalermphol, with the 8-bit animation of Miles fighting with the attacking forces that came in. It's really awesome work. When I first saw it, I was super impressed. There's tons of really great ideas in it. It's really well animated. The staging is really well done. And overall, it's a super awesome piece. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to the creators of the Spider-Verse Miles Morales rig, a tie modeler and a tie rigger who released this to the public for free. It's great timing because a lot of people used it, and I'm positive tons of people are going to use it in the coming years. So thank you to you guys as well. A great service you did to Spider-Verse fans, especially animators who are Spider-Verse fans. Before I get started, I'll talk super briefly about myself. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I was always a huge fan of dinosaurs. Drew a lot growing up, and I drew a lot of dinosaurs growing up. I also love magic tricks and illusions, cartoons, and the film that really made me want to get into working on movies was Jurassic Park, as with many people. That sort of combined dinosaurs and illusions, and as I got older, I got into comic books, anime, and after I graduated high school, I went to a 2-year technical school called DigiPen. From there, I worked in games for many years as a jack of all trades. So at Nintendo, I did concept art, modeling, texturing. I went to a studio called Monolith as a mocap cleanup artist, and also starting to get into a little bit of storyboards and camera layout. Then I worked for Warner Brothers Games, primarily as a camera layout artist. From there, I went to a small startup studio called Signal Studios, where I was back more as a jack of all trades, doing concept art, animation, motion capture cleanup, marketing video editing, and advertising. From there, I taught an intermediate Maya class where students would build their own short film. From there, I went back to Monolith, worked on Shadow of War, and went to Animation Mentor. I got a call from Sony, moved up to Vancouver, worked on Spider-Verse, Angry Birds Movie 2, and right now I'm working on The Mitchells vs. the Machines, which is going to be really awesome. Okay, now let's look at the work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with giving some broad notes. The broad notes are going to be mostly character motivation type stuff, and then from there I'll kind of narrow it down to just a couple of staging things that I think will help, and then from there we'll go into like more like sort of framing through things and looking at spacing and poses. And since you went with the 8-bit style, there's a couple of areas where I think you ought to go over it now that it's rendered out and just sort of clean it up. Okay, so the main character motivations that I think is sort of missing from this right now is having the enemies be active participants in this fight. Right now, when we look at this, what you'll notice is that the soldiers are always a bit passive. For example, this guy's not looking at Miles coming in, and it could be that he's being surprised. But I think a more exciting start to this would be to just have them already engaged. They're already aware of Miles coming, and they're in full engagement mode. So what I would do is, from the very beginning, have this soldier tracking Miles and firing at him, so that when we get to this moment here, we're already in full action. It's sort of the same note throughout. For example, when we look at this soldier here, he's sort of looking at the ground right now, and his gun is in a passive position. So I would totally have all of the soldiers sort of in full combat mode, firing at Miles while they're running in sort of like a combat stance, and always making direct eye contact with him. We notice also when he's coming in that, again, he's not making eye contact and the gun is in a passive mode. You can have him shooting at Miles and like missing, so Miles is actually sort of ducking under the gunfire. Whenever a guy's not on screen but he's coming, you could even have bullets shooting by him, like, oh, he's jumping over bullets here. He just barely dodged a bullet here. You can really amp up the level of action that's happening here. Here too, we can see he's just a bit passive. So I would just have him, again, in more of this active combat mode. This guy almost looks like he's pointing his gun at Miles. But I'd really push the idea with all of the soldiers. I don't want to get too repetitive, but it's the case with all of the soldiers. They're a bit passive. The last sort of big broad note is just how Miles leaves. You can just have him leave, which is great. It adds closure, makes the piece feel like it's done. He leaves like this wreckage of soldiers behind him. It makes him feel super cool. What you could do to make this even more interesting is give the viewer an idea of where he's going now. What's motivating him to walk off the screen? Right now, what motivates him to walk off the screen is almost more like the animation's done, so I'm gonna walk off now. But he doesn't seem to be in a hurry. You know, who were these soldiers? Where did he just come from? And where is he going now? So is he in a hurry? Is there some sort of time-sensitive reason why he fought these soldiers? Is he on a rooftop? Because if he's on a rooftop, now he's off to the next rooftop, so he's gotta shoot a web and swing. That's one way to sort of give an idea of where he is and where he's going. Also, I'm sure you've seen Spider-Verse, so at the end, post-credits, we see that Spider-Man 2099 has created this sort of wristwatch that presumably allows him to travel through the multiverse. So maybe Miles has a wristwatch, and now he's sort of taken care of this moment in the multiverse, and now he's dialing back in to go meet Spider-Gwen or 2099 or something like that. So you could use the opportunity, and for this test, and again for any test, to give the viewers an idea that this moment in time is part of a larger situation. And when you're working on a feature film, that context is always provided to you already. The story artists, the writers, directors, and stuff. They've already created that context that your shot lives in, and they've communicated that to you. So you just are more worried with it hooking up with the shot after and the shot before and making sure that the characters are acting appropriately for that moment. But when you're doing your own shot, all that stuff is like totally open, and it's kind of up to you whether you do or don't provide that kind of context to the audience. And I personally think that that's one way to make a test, an animation test, really stand out and shine, is if even in those few moments you can make the audience feel like, oh, this is part of like a much bigger thing. And you know, if it's really good like this one is, you may even leave the audience wanting to know more about what's happening after this. Now sort of like coming down from the broad overall ideas like that, there's a couple moments in here where I think just adjusting the staging a little bit would help you. This guy helps you quite a bit because it's super awesome that he gets kicked into the foreground and then becomes like this parallaxing foreground element is actually really awesome. It's just that along with that really awesomeness, he also gets in the way in a couple moments in the test. When this first kick happens, this is a pretty clear pose. Once we get to poses like this, it starts becoming a bit difficult to read what's happening. Here, their silhouettes are getting tangled up quite a bit. Here as well, here. And then Miles does this really awesome thing where the gun flips into the air and then he grabs it. But because this guy is like right on top of him, there's just a lot happening in a very small area. And I feel like this distracts from Miles' super awesome move that he does here. So what I would do with this is just, as soon as he gets kicked like this, the gun flips into the air, right? Because the gun has to end up where you want it to so that Miles can grab it. But I would totally just kick this guy away. Doesn't have to be way far away, but kick him away from Miles so that Miles' silhouette and the bad guy's silhouette are not overlapping with each other and interfering with each other. By the time we're here, the bad guy is way out here. You got all this space in between, and this moment where he grabs the gun is really highlighted and easy to see. And then this guy becomes a problem again when we miss like one of the coolest moves he does in the whole piece right here because this guy's in the way. I don't think it matters for continuity that once the camera moves back over that we see that guy again. As soon as this guy slides off the screen, once he's all the way gone here, I would just get rid of him. So he never comes back. Once he's off the screen, he's gone. And that'll just really clear up this area here where Miles slides underneath. Now from here, we can sort of narrow it down a little bit more and get into posing stuff and some spacing stuff. Okay, first thing is that this green color, this is where Miles's foot is as it tracks through space. And you can see around here in the middle of Miles coming in like this, he actually sort of hangs in the air a little bit. He should basically be picking up speed as he comes in. Here's just a minor little thing right here where his foot is coming off the soldier. So that's just a little cleanup thing. And then yeah, the webs. So it's super clear what's happening. Miles is shooting the guy in the face and then shooting the other guy in the knees and covering him with webs. It's super clear. But as I was framing through it, one thing I wasn't sure of actually, is he shooting like multiple web bullets or what? And then as I started framing near the end, I realized it could just be the process you're going through to pixelate the animation is actually what's causing that illusion that I was seeing in the beginning. Because I was noticing when I looked at these ones where it's quite clearly a full web. It's not like a web bullet or a web shot or anything like that, but it still is a broken line. So what I would do after you're done rendering it out in this way, I would just go through and sort of hand draw your web stuff so that it's super clear what we're looking at. And this is just an idea, but it might be fun to just add some little like web squirt stuff coming out of there just to emphasize those frames where the web is exiting the web shooter. Looking down here now, just another little spacing thing where we're moving down, and then he just kind of hangs in the air for one frame and then a big pop down. So I just clean that up. Okay, here again, just some notes to clean up the pixels. Here is just a little posing thing. This back leg is feeling just a little awkward, and it kind of has like a strange foreshortening on it. So I don't know if this would necessarily be that much better of a pose, but I might bend it this way. And here too, adding extra anticipation for that kick, bringing it out super far to add more power to the kick when it hits. Okay, so here's another interesting one. I didn't know until I was framing through this that Miles throws this gun into his crotch. Because this pose just never read to me at speed. I thought he was just getting hit in the stomach, or I don't know. All I knew is that he was getting hit, like right after that Miles is kicking him in the face. It actually is kind of fun when you frame through something and you see stuff you didn't even notice it was happening when it was playing at regular speed. But this is one of those things where I feel like it would actually be better if it was easy to see and you read it right away because it's funny and it's a good idea. This pose actually is, it's pretty clear, and it's kind of a universal pose for having gotten hit in the crotch. So I was wondering to myself, why didn't I see it? How could I have not seen this? So what I think it is that there's two guns involved. There's the gun that Miles threw, and then there's the gun that the soldier's dropping. And we only have a few frames to see this pose. And during all of those frames, the guns are interfering with the pose. What I would try, when he gets hit, have this gun fly away. Have it fly over Miles' head, away from the silhouette. Have him hit this pose really quickly. Right now, he gets hit, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 to 4 frames before he actually hits that pose, but this moment happens so quickly, you could just hit him and then just pop him right into that pose. Maybe you'd need like one settle frame, but I think you could just go to this pose right away so that we have those few frames to read before Miles kicks him. And the same thing with the soldier's gun that he's carrying. It also is constantly interfering with the silhouette. Just try having it drop down to the ground as quickly as possible. You might even be able to just lose this off the bottom of the frame or something, like it just fell down out of camera. But just whatever you can do to clear up this pose and hold it for as long as possible before Miles kicks in. So here's just a small thing. The legs for Miles here are really clear, but the head and the arms are really getting pretty hard to read. I would try to make this pose look kind of more like this one, where you've got a little gap in here where the elbow is super clear and the knee is super clear. And then yeah, here, this is one of those things where no one's ever going to notice, but it might be fun to just add a little extra impact to this kick. Basically have his body for like one frame, have his body stay way back here and only his head getting kicked off to the side before his body catches up. I like these smear things that you've done throughout the piece. They look really cool. They have like a nice 8-bit or lo-fi read to them that makes it feel like a video game. These are very cool. This is a minor thing, but I learned this in games doing a lot of like hit animations. When something gets hit, having like pieces break off of it helps sell that something's been hit and sell the impact. So when things get hit, I'm always looking for opportunities to like break pieces off of something and have it fly away. I would do that with this. Like after he gets hit, since the gun is a separate piece of him, I'd break it off of him and just have it fly away. The same goes if there's like separate parts on the belt or any other parts on the rig, but anytime somebody gets hit, if you just break those pieces off of them, it'll be cool. Actually, because it's kind of lo-fi, you could always just go in and draw chunks of the guys falling off or breaking off when they get hit. Here's another just minor polish thing when it comes to the posing. This is the frame where the web is first coming out of that hand, and so I would just try to make it read a little clear. Right now, his hand is inside his body silhouette, and if this wasn't pixel art, then it might be more clear, but because it is pixel art, we're just totally losing his hand right now. So I might repose this so that the hand is away from the body, and so you can just clearly see that first frame of him shooting it out. Here, I would just go in, clean up the pixels on the webs. This is an awesome move that he does here, But one thing I would do with this move is play it through to its logical conclusion. Right here, this all makes sense. He's hanging on him. He's pulling him through. He's incapacitated this guy. But I don't see a reason why Miles should let him go. I would think that he would continue using the soldier for momentum, and he would keep sliding on through and bring the guy to the ground with this move. Yeah, I would have this soldier have his arms pulled completely through his legs and then put to the ground. I think that would be awesome. This is great. I like how it's covering his face, and his hand sort of goes up. He's like, ah, I can't see. But I think the strength of this guy is actually this web shot's weakness, because it looks like it's just sort of hitting him in the chest. Technically, this guy would just be like blowing Miles away right now. He'd just be filling Miles full of bullets. What I would do is also have this web shot come to his face. Have him drop his weapon, just to make these guys feel like they actually are incapacitated. And here's just some posing stuff. This is a super awesome move. The move feels pretty good already, but I think you could push it even further. I would keep them reversed and as far out as possible, so you just get maximum amount of pull here. Boom, boom. But yeah, about this impact, it's a bit bouncy. I don't think the impact is working as well as it could. It's a fight scene, and you kind of want to make everything feel as painful and impactful as possible. When these guys smash together, try to get a pose that really creates this flat line where they're impacting. So that each one is like hitting a wall, a brick wall. It's just that each other are the wall, right? So you're getting like this really flat line where they're all smashing together, and their limbs are sort of coming off of that flat line. Smash. Maximum smash. Just smash them together, and then if it were me, rather than bouncing them away like that, it just feels a little cartoony compared to what you're doing the rest of the time, which is over the top and exaggerated, but the bounce feels a little cartoony. I would have them sort of like peel off of each other and just kind of slump down into knocked out poses. And you'd want them to peel away enough that Miles is still framed clearly here. So you'd want to make sure that he still has the space to make his awesome landing pose here. But I don't think they need to bounce that far away. And I think it'll feel more painful and a little bit more visceral and not realistic necessarily, but just more grounded if they just smash into each other and just kind of slump and then fall over. So yeah, again, really great work. Congratulations. Thanks to everybody who entered this month. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you guys later.